What if I told you that some of the world's poorest nations are drowning in debt? Not because they overspent, but because they were set up to fail from the start. That these countries are caught in a vicious cycle, borrowing money to survive, only to end up owing even more, over and over again? This isn't just about bad economics. It's about global power, politics, and control. And what's even more shocking, some of the wealthiest countries are pulling the strings. In this video, we're uncovering the truth behind debt traps, the hidden mechanisms, strategic loans, and fine print tactics that are keeping poor countries poor. But this isn't just about pointing fingers. It's about understanding how the system works, so we can expose it, and maybe change it. Stay till the end, because you'll discover how one tiny African nation fought back, and what the world can learn from it. 1. What is a debt trap? Definition plus simplified visuals. Let's start simple. A debt trap is when a country keeps borrowing money to pay off previous loans, but interest keeps compounding, and repayment becomes nearly impossible. Sounds familiar? That's because it's the exact same strategy payday lenders use on desperate individuals. But here, it's happening at a global scale. The problem is, many of these loans come with conditions. And when a country can't repay, well, they may have to sell their resources, hand over strategic assets, or agree to foreign control of critical infrastructure, all in the name of debt repayment. The origins: Bretton Woods, IMF, and World Bank. To understand how these debt traps were built, we need to go back to 1944, when the Bretton Woods Agreement gave birth to the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. Their goal? To rebuild economies after World War II. But today, they're often accused of being instruments of control. Here's how it works. A poor country needs money for roads, hospitals, or schools. They apply for a loan. The IMF agrees, but adds conditions. Cut social spending. Open up your markets. Privatize national companies. And when these policies fail, which they often do, the country has to borrow again. On even worse terms, this isn't development, it's dependency. 3. China's Belt and Road Initiative. Investment or trap? While Western institutions have dominated for decades, a new player has entered the game: China. Through its Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, China has poured over $1 trillion into infrastructure projects in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. On paper, it looks like generosity. Highways, ports, power plants. But there's a catch. Take Sri Lanka, for example. When it couldn't repay its Chinese debt for building the Hambantota port, it had to lease the port to China for 99 years. That's not investment. That's leverage. China claims it's helping poor countries develop, but critics call it modern-day colonialism. So, which is it? 4. Why do poor countries keep borrowing? Here's the million-dollar question, or rather, the trillion-dollar one. If these loans are so dangerous, why do countries keep borrowing? Because they often have no choice. Natural disasters, military coups, falling commodity prices, global recessions. Poor countries are frequently pushed to the edge. And in that moment of desperation, a shiny loan seems like salvation. And lenders? They know it. This is where desperation meets exploitation. Loans come with high interest rates, complex conditions, and penalties that only make things worse. It's not accidental. It's strategic. 5. The hidden tools of control: currency devaluation and austerity. But loans are just the beginning. When a country accepts IMF help, they're often told to devalue their currency, to make exports cheaper and imports more expensive. Sounds like economics. But in reality, it means prices of food, fuel, and medicine skyrocket overnight. Then comes austerity, cutting education, healthcare, and social programs to balance the budget. But who suffers? Not the elites. The poor. Imagine needing medicine, but hospitals are closed. Or kids dropping out of school because public funding is gone. That's the human cost of economic strategy. 6. Debt servicing versus development. Here's a shocking stat. In some African countries, over 50% of government revenue goes to debt repayment. That's more than they spend on health and education combined. Instead of building for the future, they're paying for the past. It's like trying to fill a leaking bucket. The more you pour in, the faster it drains. And who benefits? Often foreign banks, multinational companies, and political elites. Meanwhile, ordinary citizens are stuck in poverty with no way out. 7. Real-life examples. Zambia, Pakistan, and Lebanon. Let's look at real-world debt trap victims. Zambia defaulted on its loans in 2020, becoming the first African nation to do so during the COVID crisis. Now, it's negotiating with China and private lenders for relief. Pakistan, with over $125 billion in external debt, pays more in interest than it earns in exports. Its power sector is controlled by foreign investors, and inflation is skyrocketing. Lebanon defaulted in 2020. The result? Banks collapsed, the currency lost 98% of its value, and poverty rates soared past 80%. These are not isolated failures. They're symptoms of a broken global system. 8. Can countries escape debt traps? It might seem hopeless, but there's a way out. Some countries are starting to renegotiate their loans, default strategically, or form regional alliances to escape Western or Chinese influence. In Ecuador, a president once said, "Debt that violates sovereignty is not valid." He audited the national debt, declared parts of it illegitimate, and refused to pay. In Africa, new movements are demanding reparations, transparency, and economic independence. The solution isn't easy, but it begins with awareness, courage, and unity. So now you know, debt isn't just about money, it's about power. And for many poor countries, it's the invisible chain around their neck. But knowledge is power too. And the more we understand how the system works, the better chance we have to change it. What do you think? Should rich nations forgive illegitimate debt? Or is there a price for every bailout? Let's hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this eye-opening, hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video with someone who still believes all loans are just business. Because the truth is, they're not.